Imagine this. You're alone in a tiny lifeboat. All around you is nothing but water, the blazing sun above, a world of fish below, and instead of gentle raindrops, thunder roars from the sky. No food, no water, no hope. And this isn't for a day or two. It goes on for 76 long days. The question is, how can a human survive that? How can someone, all alone, without any help, fight such a long and brutal battle and come out alive? Today, we're going to talk about the terrifying yet inspiring story of Stephen Callahan, the man who, in 1982, spent 76 days stranded in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, on a tiny raft with no backup and no help. And wait, this isn't a movie plot. It's all true. It was the year 1982, and the waves of the Atlantic Ocean were calm. One man was sailing alone on his small boat. The boat's name was Napoleon Solo, and it was designed and built by the same man, Stephen Callahan. Stephen wasn't an ordinary guy. He was an experienced sailor, a boat designer, and a lover of adventure. His dream? To sail solo across the Atlantic Ocean. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? But have you ever thought, what happens when your dream suddenly turns into a nightmare? Stephen began his solo journey from France. Everything felt just perfect. Sunlight glimmering on the water, the blue ocean stretching endlessly, soft winds blowing. It felt like a scene straight out of a movie. But life isn't a movie. And the most dangerous thing about life is, it doesn't come with a script. After the 7th day, the weather began to change. The waves grew stronger. But the real disaster struck on the 9th night, when out of nowhere, a loud bang jolted Stephen awake. He saw one side of his boat rapidly sinking. Maybe he had collided with a whale, or maybe a hidden floating container had hit his boat. Within minutes, the entire vessel was filling up with water. Now imagine this. It's the middle of the night, not a single human in sight for miles. No help, no signal, only darkness, fear, and drowning hope. That was the moment Stephen realized, this isn't a trip anymore. This is going to be the biggest battle of my life. Stephen managed to grab a small inflatable life raft, just 6 feet long, from his sinking boat at the very last moment. Somehow, he tossed in a few essential items: a solar-powered distiller to convert seawater into drinkable water, some dry food rations, a harpoon for fishing, a few flares, and a diary. But now came the bigger question. For how long? How many days could he possibly survive in this tiny rubber raft, stranded in the middle of the ocean? There was no GPS, no radio, no map, no compass, just endless ocean in every direction, and an infinite sky above. So now you tell me, when does a person truly break? Is it when the food runs out, or when hope does? For the first few days, Stephen survived on his dry rations, but that quickly ran out. Now he had to fish, without a net, without a boat, without any advantage. He fashioned a line, attached a hook, and began to wait. But do you think the ocean gives in that easily? Once, he managed to catch a fish, but he had to eat it raw. Just imagine, a man who once dined in restaurants was now sitting under the burning sun, eating raw fish caught with a hook in the salty ocean just to survive. And then came the torment of thirst. Ocean water, undrinkable, full of salt. So Stephen had to rely on the sun. He used his solar distiller to evaporate seawater and collect small amounts of drinkable water. Just 1 or 2 cups a day. Every day, scorching heat. Every night, terrifying waves. And every morning, the same haunting question. Will I survive today? Now imagine, if you were in that situation, how long would you last? But wait, was the lack of food and water the only enemy? The real enemy was yet to come. Loneliness, and the mental war that comes with it. If you thought that Stephen's biggest enemies were the waves, hunger, and thirst, think again, because now the story takes a darker turn. The battle was no longer with his body, it was with his mind. 76 days alone, no voices, no phone, no music, no conversations, just silence. Stephen wrote in his diary, "I count the sunrises just to remind myself that I'm still alive." But the real fear didn't come with the rising sun. It came at night. Sometimes, a heavy thud would echo beneath his raft, something large bumping from below. Sometimes, he'd catch the shadow of a shark circling around. And many times, he would start talking to himself. Just imagine, would you be more afraid of your own voice echoing back at you, or of going insane, drifting endlessly in the middle of nowhere. Every morning, he would wake up with the same question: will someone come today? But day after day, there was only water, heat, and crushing loneliness. And the cruel irony? Sometimes a plane would pass overhead. Stephen would light a flare, wave frantically, scream as loud as he could. But the plane never stopped. In one entry, he wrote, "Maybe I'm no longer visible to other humans. Maybe I'm not even human anymore." Now the real question was, could he survive this mental war? Or, without hope, does a man eventually drown? Not in water, but in his own mind. Day 43. Stephen was exhausted, completely worn out. His face was sunburned. His lips were cracked and bleeding. His hair was matted and tangled. His body, nothing more than skin and bones. And then, just as the morning sun lit up the horizon, he saw something, far away, slicing through the ocean. A ship, a real ship, massive, gleaming, cutting through the waves, heading his way. Stephen's eyes filled with tears, but this time, tears of hope. The dying flame of survival suddenly reignited. He screamed with all the strength he had left, lit a flare, waved both hands wildly, bounced the raft to make it visible. And, for a moment, the ship slowed down. Is it stopping? His heartbeat raced. His breath grew fast. Maybe this is it. Maybe I'm saved. But then, the ship slowly turned and drifted away, in the opposite direction. Stephen just sat down, right there, on that rubber raft. Silent. No more shouting. No tears. Just silence. In that moment, he understood something heartbreaking. Not every hope that appears on the ocean is real. And that day, he wrote in his diary, "I've stopped hoping. Now, I just survive." Have you ever felt a moment like that, where hope lifts you to the sky, only to shatter the very next second? Now, all Stephen had left was a damaged raft, a few fish, a bit of rainwater, and one unbreakable thing: sheer willpower. But the story doesn't end here, because the day he broke down the most was the day nature finally changed everything. What was left for Stephen now? His rations were nearly gone. No rain, his body completely drained. Even the one ship that came close had sailed away. If this were a movie, this would be the climax. The hero dies. But in real life, sometimes the hero gets back up, on his own. Day 44. Suddenly the weather began to shift. Dark, heavy clouds rolled in, the wind picked up, and then a torrential downpour. What might be a nightmare for someone else was a miracle for Stephen. He quickly opened up the plastic sheets from his raft and began collecting the rainwater. In just 2 days, he gathered nearly 12 liters, and the storm didn't just bring rain, it brought fish, flying fish. Yes, the kind that leap right out of the water. Some jumped right into the raft, others Stephen caught with his bare hands. Now he had something he hadn't had in weeks: water, protein, and a new spark of belief. Ever thought about it? How a storm that brings destruction to many can be a blessing to someone who's barely hanging on? That day, Stephen wrote in his diary, "Maybe the one above finally saw that I wasn't giving up and answered my prayer." The ocean no longer looked like a monster. It now felt like a test, a brutal one, but a test he was willing to face. But the true challenge was still ahead, because Stephen was now about to face sharks, starvation, and his deepest fears. By now, this wasn't just a battle with hunger or thirst. Death itself was circling beneath him. One morning as Stephen was fishing, he saw it. A massive shadow gliding under the raft. A shark, several feet long, silent, powerful, like death swimming in silence. Sometimes it bumped against the raft, sometimes it circled slowly, as if testing. Stephen sat completely still. One wrong move, and it could all be over. Imagine it, just a thin rubber raft between you and a creature that could flip your entire world in a single snap. For 3 days, the shark stayed nearby, watching, waiting. And then one night, a wave slammed the raft hard. Stephen almost fell overboard, but somehow held on. That night he wrote, "I don't feel fear anymore, because there's no time left to be afraid." Now, all Stephen had left wasn't food, or gear, or strength. What he had left was obsession, pure, unshakable determination. And then, day 76, a shape appeared in the distance. It wasn't a shark. It wasn't a mirage. It was a ship. But was this real? Was this finally rescue? Or just another cruel trick from the ocean? Let's find out. In the final part, what really happened on that last day. After 76 long, painful days, Stephen saw the shadow of a ship on the horizon. Could it be real? Was this finally the end? Or just another cruel illusion? He gathered the last bit of strength he had, screamed, fired a flare, shook the raft violently, but this time, the ship slowed down. It didn't disappear. It stopped. Stephen's days of dry bread, salty water, and fading hope were finally over. The rescue team found him drifting about 400 miles from the nearest island. When they pulled him on board, he collapsed, completely exhausted, but alive. His story shook the world. The man who survived the Atlantic Ocean for 76 days, alone, without modern tools, without help. So now ask yourself, how does this story make you feel? Did it give you strength? Did it scare you? Or did it give you hope? Let us know in the comments. What kind of story do you want to hear next? One that truly moves your heart. So friends, this was the true story of a man who conquered the ocean, whose body was broken, but his spirit refused to give up, who didn't beg for life. He fought for it. Stories like these remind us there's a Stephen inside all of us, fighting our own oceans, sometimes made of broken dreams, sometimes of loneliness, sometimes of fear. The question isn't whether you fall. The real question is, do you rise? Do you keep going? If this story touched your heart, like the video, comment your biggest takeaway, and don't forget to subscribe for more real, powerful stories.